Hey couples, today's topic falls into the parenting category. We're going to talk a little bit about bullying. And why don't we start with some statistics? 33% of elementary kids report getting bullied. And it doesn't stop there. In high school, 20% of those students report getting bullied. And that's just the ones who report getting bullied. I think the number's probably higher. All right, Trey, so let's start with the signs of bullying because parents aren't always aware of what's going on with their kids at school. So parents, if you see these three things, withdrawal, loneliness, or depression, pay attention because your kid might be bullied.
Yeah, one of the bigger signs is if your kid all of a sudden had an interest on their sports team or an after-school program, and then all of a sudden they're kind of like, I don't want to go anymore, and they're avoiding that. That's usually a pretty good indication that something's going on with kids in that group that makes your kid uncomfortable. For teenagers, with the bullying that happens online, that one can be a little bit harder to track, honestly. So if your teenagers, all of a sudden you notice they're not hanging out with that same group of friends anymore, they've kind of been excluded from that, or they're starting to feel depressed, or saying kind of negative self-talk, that might be another indication that they've got some people in their life that are giving them a hard time.
All right, so look for those signs of bullying. And in this video, we want to help you with how to handle bullying when you know that it's happening with your kids. 5 really practical tips. Number 1, make sure to be approachable as a parent.
As parents, this approachability piece is important no matter if bullying's going on with our kids or not. We need to create a safe space that our kids feel like they can come and talk to us about whatever they need to talk to us about. That we are not creating an environment where they're saying, mom or dad couldn't handle that information, so I'll say nothing. So we really need to create a space where our kids feel like no matter what, they can come to us with anything.
And then when they do come, parents, don't overreact. I think when you overreact, then the next time they're probably not going to bring it up.
Yes, and this was when I remember when our son came home and talked about a kid that got physically rough with him on the playground, and he was maybe 3rd grade. And this was an older kid. I mean, my first reaction, the kid lived in our neighborhood. So as soon as I heard it, my instinct was, oh, I'm going to march over to that house right now and give that kid a piece of my mind. But that wouldn't be helpful. As parents, we need to be measured in our response that, again, we create a space where our kids can come to us and share. Plus, we don't want our reaction to make it feel worse than our kids already feeling about it. So don't overreact. We need to stay measured.
And then make sure to call it what it is. You know, especially if your kids are younger, they might not even recognize that what's going on is bullying. It's helpful for you to name it so that they can identify it.
And again, you should do this with your kids even if you don't think that your kid's being bullied right now. I just think this is an educational piece that you talk to your kids about what is bullying. What does it mean to be a bully? What does it look like when someone's being bullied? And name it and start talking about it with your kids so that's kind of on their radar, so that if they start to be on the receiving end of that, they're going to know what to call it when it happens, rather than them just feeling like terrible about themselves and not understanding why a kid's being mean to them, especially in the younger ages.
Now, I like this 4th one. Parents, you should practice winning with your kids when it comes to the topic of bullying. And Tracy, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, if you read any of the research on what the experts would tell you to do is practice scenarios with your kids. If a kid came up to you at recess and grabbed the ball out of your hand and refused to give it back, what would be an appropriate response to that situation? If kids are calling you names or making fun of you, what's the appropriate response? And kind of coach and create scenarios that you're kind of training your kids in a moment so that if it happens in real life, they're going to be like, oh, I remember, this is what I should do. Coach them on when's it appropriate to go get an adult involved in the situation. What do you do when you see somebody else being bullied? These are things that as parents, we can be proactive to train and coach our kids even before the bullying occurs.
And then finally, in some cases, it's appropriate to reach out either to someone at school or even to the parent of the bully.
And this, I think, is a case-by-case scenario. And I think as a parent, you're going to have to trust your judgment and look at the situation as a whole. You know, a lot of times it might be you've coached your kid, okay, if it happens again, do this. Okay, if that still didn't work, then it might be appropriate to go to the teacher and just say, hey, I need you to have eyes on this situation if it's happening at school. And then sometimes, you know, depending on the relationship you have with maybe the other kid or the bully family, it might be appropriate to reach out to the family and say, hey, it looks like our kids are having a hard time getting along. I mean, I would never suggest that you call the bully's parents in a fit of rage and now you become a bully to them. So some of this is, it's a case-by-case basis, and it might be good to ask a teacher or a trusted friend in your life, like, hey, if you were in my shoes, what would you do here? But sometimes reaching out is going to be appropriate because our kids need to see that we're willing to protect them. That's going to be really important in a trust-building exercise, that if something's really going wrong and your kid's not able to solve it on their own, which is your first goal, then them seeing you protect them and go to the next level is really important as well.
So those are 4 tips on how to handle bullying with your kids. Use those resources below to have this conversation with them.